Hello and welcome. Welcome to Everyone's an Expert. I bet I'm not as loud as usual because I just realized I'm sitting further away from my microphone. So let's see if we can adjust that. This is how things go when you're setting things up on the fly. So thanks for bearing with me there. I'm going to mute this a second before I move it and blow your ears out. Everyone's an expert except for the guy running the show here today. And there, hopefully we're back, and that is sounding all right to you. Levels look all right on my end, so let me know if there's any problems. Hi, John, Todd, Jason, and Roland. Hello, welcome. So we definitely want to talk about winter stuff, and that new. I'm just a mess today, dropping everything. The new software update that came out, hopefully is rolling out to those that need it desperately. I don't know that I've seen it on my end, but I haven't checked. I did a drive this afternoon and everything was fine, but obviously it's a lot warmer here in Minnesota now today than it was, say, 4 or 5 days ago. Thanks for letting me know the volume's okay. Todd just got back from a trip where I believe he was at Giga Texas. So, Todd, if you want to share anything about that in the chat, you're welcome to do that. Had I had a little more time to set up, you can see I'm a little discombobulated today. But had I had a little more time setting up, I could have had Todd on as a guest, and we could have talked about that. So maybe that's something we'll do in one of the coming weeks. Because I've heard a lot of people who have been down there, but it's always good to get that firsthand information. And if people have questions, they can easily ask. You can still ask them in the chat. Feel free to do that. But sometimes it's nice when you can see his face, his bright, shining face, as he answers questions. Let's start. The conversation already in the chat is about the software update. Obviously, I know a lot of people in the Minnesota owners group were having issues with this heat pump failing in the winter. And I know Tyler was having problems with it. So it sounds like from the very unofficial, someone posted it on Facebook, it got picked up by Rob Maurer at Tesla Daily, and then Tesla Owners Online. Trevor posted this last night on Twitter in a thread. And basically, it sounds like the front air intake is freezing open, and as you're at highway speeds and that cold wind is blowing over a sensor, it seems to think that the system is failing, so it shuts the whole thing down. So it sounds like the software fix is to just ignore that, or I don't know if they can tell if the intakes are not working, then ignore it. But they're doing something around that. Hopefully, they've been working on trying to get a fix figured out with someone in Alaska. And obviously, we've had some pretty Arctic cold here, but guessing they have more consistently cold temps up there. So hopefully, this is the fix. It sounds like it's the fix that's going out is 2021.44.30.6. As a software update, and I'm guessing it's probably a pretty quick download for people as they get it. I think earlier today I saw people saying that it was being tested with internal people before it went wide release, and then I heard someone respond to that of, no, I know someone who's just a customer and has already received it. So hopefully that gets out. Hopefully that does solve the problem. That would be great. It's kind of been, I know a lot of people are frustrated with the communication on that. But it's one of those, obviously, yeah, it would be great if they just said, hey, we're working on the problem. Elon did respond to that Twitter thread saying something to the effect of, that's a good explanation. So it sounds like that was an official thumbs up to what the problems they were having and what their solution is going to be. Just weird that it comes through Twitter thread, and maybe there will be more information on the release notes when you download the software fix. So we'll see how that goes. Obviously, it would have been nice to have, a formal press release saying, hey, we understand people are having this issue. We're working on it. Should have a fix in a couple days. But that's just, unfortunately, not the way they roll on some things. But the fact that they can, I know some people have been having this problem for a while, but it seems like a lot of people have been having it in the last couple weeks. And it's really been compounding. And maybe that's just been happening in Minnesota with the big cold snap we had here. But it does sound like they're taking it seriously. And if this thing really is rolling out today to a lot of people, that's a relatively quick fix. And for, if you consider how any other auto manufacturer would handle it, this is a pretty quick fix. Obviously, it's not great for anyone being stuck in the snow, as we discussed in the last video on the channel, that being stuck in the snow in the cold can be pretty unpleasant. I see a lot going on in the chat here, so I will just check in on that. Tesla Daily did a good walk through on it. In Tesla Owners Online, there's a good thread, the one that Elon responded to. Todd says it's huge. I hope he's talking about Giga Texas. I'm pretty sure he is. John's asking what he got for souvenirs, just pictures. John got a warning today that his internal camera isn't working for about 5 minutes, and then the warning went away. John got the software update for the heat pump, so that's good. That means people are getting it. Yeah, they flew some techs to Alaska to work on a heat pump issue. And Jason says, Teslafy says 568 deployed. All types getting it, not just Wise. Good. Well, that's great. They are, moving, again, compared to other auto manufacturers, they're moving fast. Is it as fast as we'd like? No, but there's something interesting and something that's really awesome about Tesla, but I think it kind of makes us lose our perspective a little bit. Some of you may know my wife works in medical devices on the back end regulatory side. So when something goes wrong, like the FDA or another country's version of the FDA might reach out and say, what's the failure rate on this? Does there need to be a recall? All that kind of stuff. And hearing the stories of how other companies deal with things, and how long some of these things take to correct, even if it's not with her company, people hear things in the industry they're in. We do have it pretty good that Tesla can fix these problems relatively fast. Is it always great? No. But, we are pretty spoiled in that our cars do get better, and this isn't okay, leave it at the dealership for a week while we, you know, obviously a few people probably had to for them to solve this issue, but the rest of us are just getting a software update. We're in our pajamas going, oh yeah, load that and I'll check it out in the morning. So, we do have it pretty good on that front. Obviously things could still get better and should, but that communication piece is always seems to be the sticky thing. But sticking with the theme of quick solutions or kind of innovative ways to handle problems, I was really interested that here in Minnesota, the Maplewood Service Center, Robert sent a message to the Minnesota Tesla Owners Group that basically they're going to, I can't remember if that was happening today or if it was happening tomorrow. If anybody knows and can put that in the chat, that would be great, in case anyone wants to know. But basically there's a recall for the frunk latch on the frunk, and it just takes a couple minutes. They inspect it. They go, yeah, it needs replacing, or no, it doesn't. And then it only takes a few minutes to do. And so people have been putting in, service tickets for that. And it sounds like there's enough of them and enough interest in people wanting to do that Maplewood just said, you know what, let's just have a frunk latch fixing day. And said, anybody who's got this recall, RSVP or email us to let us know you're coming. Just come to the parking lot. Someone will come out, take a look, either send you on your way, you're good, or we'll replace it. And I just thought that was like a really cool, different way to approach, something that would be a bunch of little service visits, when maybe you've got bigger projects you need to do up on lifts and things like that, and then you're stopping what you're doing because you have an appointment on a frunk latch. And obviously they won't get everybody's done. It's not going to work for everybody's schedule to just come in that day. But if they can knock out a bunch of these and just get it taken care of, that's going to streamline their overall process and make getting appointments for, the rest of us for, things if we need then that much easier. So I don't know what you guys think about that, but I thought that was kind of a innovative approach to service. And staying on the service side of things, it sounds like, if rumors are true, that Bloomington, that long-awaited Bloomington Supercharger, might not be just a supercharger, but it might be a new service center. And my guess is it's going to retire Eden Prairie, and all that service would go into a new facility there. Hopefully they've got a much bigger parking lot than Eden Prairie. I don't know if or why they would keep Eden Prairie in this scenario, but that's that will be fantastic. I don't know when it's. I know like the building proposal and stuff has all gone through the city stuff, so I don't know how long it's going to take to build. It would be great if they could get that up and running this year even. But we'll have to wait and see. But that'll be really cool. And then, hopefully we get something south of the river too. But that's, just a cool upgrade that I'm really looking forward to. And for those of you outside of Minnesota, there is broader Tesla talk coming. But that's just kind of the big stuff I've been paying attention to just right here in the state. John is saying the fix is a Band-Aid fix. The event is for tomorrow, so that would be Thursday the 13th of January, and for walk-in service, basically, of getting your front latch fixed. So, Todd, are you going over the Maplewood? Todd is in the morning. I will not be. Part of the franticness of getting reset up for this tonight was my daughter had a cough and runny nose on Sunday night. We decided, with the school guidelines they had, we should keep her home because they don't want anybody with any illness coming in, just so they can kind of keep a handle on things. Was still there Monday, kept her home Tuesday, and was still there Tuesday, and we decided, you know what, we think we're just going to keep her out all week just to be safe. We don't have tests, and the quick tests are kind of hard to come by right now. So we're like, well, let's save whatever tests we can get. Let's just keep her out all week. It'll be all right. And then I think she has Monday off school too. So I've been doing the full-time dad thing this week, and turns out right after I kind of made the call that we were going to keep her out all week, school sent an email that because so many students and so many staff are out, they're actually closing for Thursday and Friday, and have the Monday off. So hopefully we can get back to a good place by early next week, but we'll see. But because of that, I will have my daughter with me. Obviously, I've been home with her all week, and just to make sure we're not passing anything along, whether it's just a winter cold or something worse. We're going to stay away from crowds and things and just hang out at home. But one thing we are able to do, and it does get us out of the house, which is fantastic because we need it at this point, is we've been able to go for some full self-driving drives. And she just plays in the car and listens to the Sesame Street songs. And I just test beta out. So we went for like an hour and a half drive yesterday and an hour and a half drive today. Not going to do more videos on it probably for a while as just a check-in. If you want to see more videos of how it's behaving in Minnesota, watch Dan Berkland's channel. I think he had a 0 disengagement drive. He posted in the last couple days. It was pretty good. He may have had to give a couple little accelerator inputs or something, but so he seems to be having a pretty good experience with it. I think I'm on 10.8.1 now. I got a software update before this winter one, and I didn't check the notes, but I'm pretty sure that's what that was. It was the day it started rolling out to everybody. And we did a drive yesterday around the suburbs, kind of the southern suburbs of Minneapolis and St. Paul. And it was okay. It did a few of the, trying to get into a turn lane rather than continue straight, which is annoying. And I thought it had kind of been fixed a little bit, so that's a little bit of a regression. I hadn't seen that in 10.8. But generally it was doing things pretty well, but just kind of very beta-y, like, correction here, correction there, accelerator here. And it was, it was fine. We were just out testing it, and I've got a few places where it seems to struggle. And so I kind of like taking those routes and just kind of see how it's progressing. And like I said, we did that for about an hour and a half yesterday. And then today we needed to get out of the house again. By the way, my daughter's doing much better. The cough is pretty much gone. The runny nose has stopped, thankfully. because it's like Swamp Thing over here for a couple days. Sorry if that's too much information, but yeah, it's been grim. Anyway, so today it was like, well, the weather's nice, so we did a walk down the block. There's nobody else out or about, so not worrying about that. But, the temperature was nice. And then as we got into the car, I'm like, well, where should we go today? We could do the same kind of thing. And I thought, well, since I made that first FSD video, I haven't really driven into St. Paul again. So I thought, all right, let's head up to, as if we're going to the Maplewood Service Center, but then just kind of get lost and then kind of work our way back to the capital area. We went down, I can't remember the name of, right by the River Center and right like down the hill behind the Science Museum. There's a very old little park area from like old St. Paul. And it's just kind of it's a bunch of old houses, Victorian houses around this little park. Irving Park? Maybe? I can't quite remember. And so it's just kind of a neat little area, and it's so close to all this hubbub. And then you come down into this like little thing out of 101 Dalmatians almost. And then, a block away is this, giant parking structure. It's super weird. But so we got down there, and then I, navigated to another neighborhood where I knew it would have to kind of pass through downtown and get into another neighborhood. We ended up in a neighborhood and then by the stockyards, which I had never been near the St. Paul stockyards before. And it handled super, super well. There was maybe one or two interventions that I can think of. I may have hit the accelerator a couple times, but it went through pretty dicey roads. Snow chunks kind of in and out of the different areas, or, kind of hanging over the curbs and stuff. Two disengagements I remember. One was, some of the streets in St. Paul are fairly narrow, and we had oncoming traffic. And I think the oncoming vehicle was kind of skidding across the yellow line a little bit. Not skidding, just, kind of coming in. The roads weren't slick, they were wet. But and so as that was coming through, it kind of jerked the wheel to the right, but there was someone to my right. And I thought, I'm not going to chance it. I'm just going to make sure we don't go too far. So it yanked it out of beta at that point, and then put it back in. It probably would have been fine, but it's one of those, trying to be a responsible beta tester driver. So that went pretty well. And then another time, it was doing a merge kind of where two roads kind of come together and then make one, merge together. And I was at a stop sign, and there was a huge pile of snow to our left. And it started going, it kind of felt like it was creeping, but then creeping a little too far. And I thought, you either need to gun it or we need to stop right now. So I did hit the brake and just let a couple cars go by, and then I gunned it. But that was a tough situation for me to call too. But, as the human driver, okay, in this scenario, I'm not going to pull out. When I think I have an opening, I'm going to nail it, and just get going really fast so there's no way I'm going to get hit. So there's some of that programming that might need to be, where it needs to be a little more gutsy in those situations. But overall, I was, especially after yesterday's being a pretty ho-hum, not great beta drive, how it handled in St. Paul was really miraculous. even some of the stopping and starting at stop signs and things, I would guess, had I been following the car, I wouldn't have known if it was in beta or not. It was making such good, quick decisions. I don't know. I look like I'm still on. I lost my little monitor camera here, or my monitor on the screen, but as long as I'm still showing up over there, I think I'm all right. So, but anyway, so, you know, I did mention that on Twitter that I had a good drive, and in St. Paul, that seems like it should get extra points. So we'll see. You know, the big thing is what's the rate of improvement, and if you look at the rate of improvement from that drive I did a couple months ago in that first video to what it did yesterday, it's like a completely different software. So really, really impressed with it. And just hope it continues to get better, because obviously it has to handle, you know, weird suburb situations as well as weird neighborhoods in St. Paul. Just going to check up here. John wants to go score free coffee at Maplewood. Jason's recall is on the airbag and doesn't say the frunk. Is that the airbag on the S with the yoke? How do you know if the latch is bad? I think they should have sent you a recall notice. I don't know if that would show up in service or on your account, maybe online. Or they may have sent you a physical, you know, paper copy. So if you don't see anything anywhere on your account or the paper copy, you probably aren't part of it. I don't think I'm part of it. Okay, Todd got an email about the issue. Yeah, so you would have been notified somehow. Yeah, it's still having a problem, John's saying, and it's still having a problem going too fast on residential streets where there's ice. I've had some of that where I've had to ramp down the speed pretty fast just to get it a little more under control. It seems like this could be just wild speculation here. It seems like it almost does better when the ice is shiny than when it's just white and like flat white, as if it's just a surface. That's completely anecdotal. I wouldn't want to test it necessarily. But if anybody else notices something like that, let me know, because it is kind of curious. Because there have been sometimes, and with the new updates, I will say, I just realized how low I am in the frame. Sorry, that's really strange. I'm going to move that quick because it's bothering me now. But I will keep talking. There, that's a little better. With ice and slippery conditions, it seems to be staying in beta better, where the first time I took it out in the snow and ice, it would slide around and not, I'd get the red warning, take over immediately. And definitely in the last 2 days of driving, if it would take a corner and, there's still some slush or ice or something on a corner, and it would lose traction, it would just kind of figure it out and keep going. And I've noticed that on 10.8 and 10.8.1 now that it seems to have a better sense of, oh, we're just slipping a little, it's okay, and then moving on. So hopefully that continues to be the case. I'm thinking that this winter has got to be really valuable to them with all of the people testing it in all the different situations, that even if we don't see these, massive improvements over this winter, hopefully we do. And by like March, if we get a snowstorm, it's going to be fantastic. But I think we'll really see the improvements it's learning from this year in next winter. That's my hope, at least. I'm sorry, you were muted for part of that, but not all of that. I apologize. So, yeah, on the Plaid, yeah, I thought I had heard they had a recall on the airbag for that. So speaking of conditions, I wanted to touch back on the winter tests that I did and a lot of other YouTubers did last week in response to the Virginia snowstorm. Got a handful of comments and, people complaining on Twitter of, why is everybody doing this? This is so dumb, Are people just trying to be YouTube stars? Obviously. With a slick setup like I've had tonight, YouTube stardom is this far away. As he pauses again to take a drink. But, a couple people were very quick to point out that Bjorn Nyland did this. Tesla Bjorn. He's in Norway. Did this with a heat pump Model 3, I think last winter. And it's great. Bjorn's great, does a lot of really good, valuable testing and, crazy road trips and things like that. But every situation is different. And the results, under my video, I posted a lot of other people's videos that they had done on this topic and kind of where they were in the world. So I just kind of took some, just some rough notes today. I rewatched all of them. So in Bjorn's test, the temperatures were in the 20s and 30s Fahrenheit. And he went from 100% to beyond 0%. So very thorough test. But the weather was warmer than it was here. And he did have an insert in the ceiling of his car. So he got almost 3 days out of his. I'm going to say some of the results, but I do, like, if you haven't seen their videos and you're interested in this topic, I'm trying to give bare bones information here, just to make a point. It's definitely worth going and checking out these people's videos, if for no other reason that they put a lot of work into them, and you might find it interesting. Some of them are pretty entertaining. I talked a lot about, in my video, I talked about Chris from Dirty Tesla, because while I was sitting in the car, he posted his video of his tests, and he tested both a Model Y and a Model X, and he started at about 90%, and he was saying, he could probably get 36 hours in the Model Y and 28 hours in the Model X. The Model X is an older one with the resistive heater. And he thought in the Model Y he could probably get up to 60 hours if he had set his car temp to 60 degrees. And And the temperatures there, he's in Michigan, so a little closer to us. It was 15 Fahrenheit. I think his lowest temp, he said, was 9. And so that's fairly comparable to, our typical temperatures here. And a lot of other people did them closer to the temperatures they were seeing in Virginia. Sean Mitchell did his in Colorado. I want to say his temperature was between 10 degrees Fahrenheit and 27 degrees Fahrenheit. And roughly, judging off his estimates, you would get roughly 3 days. And he's using a 2013 Model S, so much older, resistive heater. But his coldest temp was 10 degrees Fahrenheit, I believe. And he went from 90%. And then Plug and Play EV did one with a Chevy Bolt. And I think they're in Maryland near Baltimore. I'm not 100% sure on that. But somewhere in the Northeast. And he started his Bolt with 68% and did like a 7-hour test. And then he was in the high 20s for temperature. And so he kind of did some rough math extrapolating his 7-hour test. And it sounds like in the Bolt you could get about 24 hours pretty easily. With having, decent heat and all that. EV Dave did a good test down there. He did his really interesting on his test. And you can, again, see his video for the details on how he did this. But he did his first day in dog mode, and it was more efficient than his second day when he did keep climate on. And I think dog mode always keeps the screen on. But I don't know if it just shuts everything else off because, if dogs hit a button or something, it could be a problem. I'm not sure why dog mode was so efficient. And I would love to do a test between dog mode and camp mode and see if there's a difference in consumption there. His first night, I think, got down to 25 degrees, and then his second night got down to 21 degrees. So much warmer than here, but again, more comparable to what they were seeing in Virginia. So he did a 48-hour test, but figured, I think he still ended up with like 23% when he ended his 48-hour test. So there again, with a full battery, probably around 3 days in those temps. Guy from Minnesota, he actually started his test the same morning I was, finishing mine up. And he did his test for 17 hours. And his YouTube channel is EV Up North. And he's got some good kind of funny videos there. I've just seen a couple of them, but enjoyed them so far. And like he set this whole thing up that he was like being circled by wolves and everything, and had to stay in his EV. And so this one was really interesting. He did 17 hours, but figures. But he also started with I think 65% when he started his test, and he started his test about where I did, or where I was, where it was about 18 below zero Fahrenheit. And so he figures he probably could have got 39 hours maximum, if he had used the whole battery based on what he was consuming. But based on his calculations, and I'm not saying he did anything wrong, It's just something I need to figure out on my end. Based on his numbers, I should have got 27 hours, roughly, out of my test. And obviously I got 14 before I called it. And so I need to look at my consumption numbers and things like that. The difference between all these tests and mine were that I was actually in the car, because I swear it was not for stunt purposes. It never occurred to me. I mean, I knew I could, set the climate and leave it, but it never occurred to me that this would be a valid test unless the person was in it. And really, for the most part, of course it was. And when people started pointing that out, I'm like, yeah, I got a really crappy night of sleep for nothing. But it is interesting that I got such different results from Guy from EV Up North. Now, he did start his the morning I was... I had started mine the night before, and it got colder and colder and colder overnight. And he started his when it was 18 below in the early morning, and then ran his test through the day. Now, it got warmer throughout that day. So that may be the difference. I'm going to have to play around with those numbers a little bit more. So it's very interesting, and why I think it was worth doing was because the temperatures vary, the situations vary. If someone's in the car or not, it varies. And so most people, looking at all the data from people, and I'm sorry I don't have this in a nice chart or graph or a map I was going to do with stats and things in it. Picture it in your mind's eye. Picture good graphics in lieu of none. But what I think it really illustrates is the people in the Michigan and the people in the Virginia situation could have got easily, I think, the highest number I saw was 27 or 29 hours that people were stalled, which is just horrible. It's horrible even in the summer if you were broken down, for 27 hours and stuck on the road. So, obviously I had the luxury of a bathroom right inside, and I could say screw this at any point if I had needed to, and just called it off. Where when you're out there, you don't have the option. I bought snacks knowing I was going to do this. So, horrible situation to be stuck in. But generally, all the results from people in similar temperatures, even a little colder, show that they easily could have made it, assuming they had a reasonable state of charge. Obviously, if they started with 10% and were on their way to a charger, they would have been a little hosed. But that's the same thing with a gas car. If you got on the freeway with a quarter tank and then sat there for 27 hours, you're going to be in trouble too. So, Chris from Dirty Tesla, I thought, did a great job breaking down some of the other anti-EV arguments that were in an article that got a lot of notice. So, definitely, I think there's reasons to go watch all these other videos and check those out. Did I have anything else on that? I think that's it. Unless you guys have questions, I'll just check in the chat here. John asks, when you did the cold weather test in your driveway to check on the battery, lucky the neighbors didn't call the cops and do a welfare check on you. Yeah, it is. My neighbors, one house is completely being torn apart to be flipped or something. So that's just, construction people going in and out of there. My next door neighbors and my other across the street neighbor see me doing so much dumb stuff and like filming out in the driveway, that if they noticed, they probably just rolled their eyes and didn't worry about it. But I don't know that they even really pay attention. Um, uh, the bolt could get extra warm, but will not last long. Yeah, it could. I think he's had his replaced, so hopefully it doesn't get that extra warm for him. Um, hey Tyler, welcome. I hope you're all moved into the new house, and it didn't destroy your back again to do so. Long time no see. Just got the 30.6 update on yours. Excellent. Hopefully that fixes your issue. I know it sounds like Cammy was driving back from work in some pretty awful situations. So hopefully that does it, and it'll take care of you from here on out. Been busy pulling a car out of your yard? Was it frozen in there, or did things thaw out and it ended up in the mud? That sounds like an interesting story. Yeah, I can definitely tell you the overnight in the car, when you don't plan for it, is it wasn't super pleasant. I've slept in the front seats before, and it kind of hurts the back of your legs a little bit. I'm a side sleeper, and so trying to lay flat in that situation just does not work well for me. And then I had the seat heaters on level 2, to keep me warm. But then that was also like kind of uncomfortable. Underneath, just on the backs of your legs and stuff. And then, so I thought, well, I'm just going to, tip the seats down, climb in the back. But because I hadn't planned on, I intentionally didn't stock the car for, comfort and sleeping. It was kind of like, well, what can I find in here? And I did have my heavier winter jacket, which I keep in there. But I needed that on me. And just lying on the hard, I have floor mats back there, but it's basically just the hard carpet of the trunk. After a couple hours, and because I kept setting I probably could have slept for longer on it, but I set my alarm every hour to make sure if the heat did shut off for some reason, I wouldn't be, wake up dead, essentially, from, they say when hypothermia sets in, you get really tired and, you just fall asleep. Well, if I'm already asleep and I don't notice, I did not want that to be the case. So had the alarm set. Plus, I wanted to make sure about every hour I got the data from the car. And I want to talk about that in a minute here. But yeah, so it was pretty uncomfortable. Then I found a roll of paper towels, and that was the perfect pillow size, especially at that point. I know, like, on a day-to-day, like, that sounds not like a not great place to take a nap, but man, it changed the game. It actually even helped because of the way that the neck of the seat is. When I went back up there and tried to sleep in the seat again, I was able to sleep for a couple hours at a stretch and actually missed some data because of that. But yeah, it's just a different ball game when you're actually in there. But I think some of the reason my data might be different than other people's, obviously the cold was more severe. But also, like people in that situation, I had to get out to, use the bathroom or find my winter jacket that was in the trunk. That meant popping the trunk and all that heat rushing out. I did it as quickly as I could. Got that jacket out of the under trunk and put the trunk back down. But still, that means the whole cabin has to rewarm again. And that's the kind of thing that would happen to you if you were, stranded and had to make those decisions of like, when do I go back and get that jacket? So yeah, it was interesting and kind of interesting that I thought about making that video a little more about like how to survive in the winter, if this happens to you. But I thought that might make it too long. And I really didn't want it to come off as I'm making fun of the people in the Virginia situation because they weren't smart enough to think of this cold weather hack, or when they don't have the experience we do in Minnesota of winter stuff. Still might be a worthwhile video, but I just didn't want to tie it to that situation. And apparently now, I don't know these people, but a couple people commented on Twitter threads and things. So I'll take them at their word, but with a grain of salt. Some people said they were in that situation in Virginia. I think one person said they were in a Model 3 and only lost like 16% of their range or something like that. I have no reason to doubt them, but other than the fact that they're a person I don't know on the internet who might just be looking for, praise or something like that. I don't know. Like I said, I don't have any reason to doubt them other than just general internet skepticism. And I think a couple stories have come out from people who had been there. But again, take that with a grain of salt. Tyler's been lighting up the chat here, so I'm going to catch up with him here. His back is doing good. That's good news. Facebook Marketplace, lady was trying to back out of our driveway and went into the yard. He used his 3's tow hook to pull her back on, and then she hit your car? Jeez Louise. I moved out of the way, and then she went even further off the driveway the second time, pulled her out again. And I stabbed myself with a screwdriver trying to get the tow rope undone. Man, you and Jason, I don't know, you guys have crazy luck. That is just awful. I don't know if I want to hang out with you guys together just to make sure, like, I'm safe, or, like, if it's going to come off onto me. Oh, man, that is rotten luck. Yeah, for a $20 dresser. Holy cow. Chip the millimeter of paint not covered by PPF, getting the tow hook cover off. Surprisingly, the bumper kiss didn't do any damage that I could tell anyway. That's good. Yeah, I was afraid you were going to have to go in for major service. John says, that's why I don't like the Model X in Minnesota in the winter time. The Falcon wing doors let all the heat out. Yeah, that would be the downside. There's that downside, and then the other, I probably told this story before, but when we were pretty new to the Model S and testing that out in Hinckley, I was so excited because, well, for one, we were supercharging, and that was still super cool to me, and it is still super cool. But we were supercharging, and a Model X pulled up, and guy got out, popped the doors open. Kids are getting back there. He turns from the door, from the driver's door, turns around, and takes a step and nails his forehead right on the edge of the Falcon Wing door. And I was just about to go over and talk to him, and I'm like, nope. He's going to stand over there swearing for a while, and I don't really want to interrupt that. So, yeah, that's the other downside if you're tall enough that I can nail you in the forehead. So, yeah, letting the heat out is a problem. Yeah, I'll leave that alone where it is. Some other cool things that have come out. Yuka from the Minnesota Tesla Owners Group wrote an article for fresh-energy.org. And it was 12 EV market trends to watch in 2022. And I thought it was really pretty good, and it wasn't just for 2022. It was kind of like, these are the things in 2022 that are going to be a catalyst for the rest of the decade. And so it kind of took that approach of, where we are now and the explosion we're expecting to see in 2022, and how that sets us up for the rest of the EV world, going through the decade. So that's worth checking out. It's fresh-energy.org if anyone's interested in that. If you're not in the Minnesota EV owners group, you probably didn't see the post on it. But if you did, you probably saw it a couple days ago. Let's see. Cammy's Bolt has the triangles of death on the hatch, which nearly took an eye out last time I was in the trunk. Yikes, that sounds... Is that the corners of the trunk when it's up? I can see how that could be a pretty tough situation on the face. And another thing I noticed recently was, I think this came out yesterday. There was a study or something was published yesterday about how 2/3 of Americans don't want EVs, and half of them wouldn't pay more for an electric vehicle over a combustion engine vehicle. And my gut reaction was the same as a lot of people's in the EV world. I think the Kilowatts was the first person I saw to post this, and they said, well, that's really good because that means 1/3 of the U.S. does want EVs, and half of them would pay more for an EV. So that's way better than we were, 2 or 3 years ago. And really at this point, that's probably, this is me editorializing here, but I think that's about where we want to be. There's the revolution of transportation is happening, but it's also the manufacturers can't make enough EVs yet. Everybody is supply constrained, whether you like their cars or not. The Lightning is, doubling and then doubling again their production targets. They can't make the Mach-E fast enough. Porsche's sales were way up, mostly due to the Taycan. Tesla's, months out months out on their delivery times on some of the vehicles. So would it be great if everyone wanted an EV and was willing to pay more? Yes. But that just means that extra 2/3 of people would be very frustrated that they couldn't get the thing they want yet. And so would it be great if everyone wanted one? Sure. But this is part of the process of giving time for friends and neighbors who do want them, probably like everybody watching this, getting those vehicles into friends, neighbors, relatives' hands and giving test drives and things. And as that grows, as more and more EVs are produced, so that supply isn't quite as constrained. I think it will be for a few years, but as that supply is less constrained, that's when those people who are getting those test drives, maybe their first EV test drive will be this summer or maybe next Christmas. And they go, oh, you know what? Almost everyone on my block has one of these, or a handful of people on my block has these. And this test drive I got was pretty sweet. There's charging stations all over the place, which hopefully, more and more will continue to accelerate being built. I think that, a study like this is very encouraging, although it was positioned as a negative. I think from where we were a handful of years ago, where no one knew what an electric car was, people are getting the hint and starting to understand. And so I think this is a good place about where we should be on growth, given that the last 2 years, year and a half was, not... We couldn't do the EV events we wanted to do. Speaking of EV events, does anybody know if there's... I think the Minneapolis Auto Show is happening in some capacity this year, and I don't know if they're going to have an EV section as well. Obviously, Tesla won't be there, but it'll be interesting to see what they have there. Well, thank you very much, the 5 count. I'm assuming that's Dusty, so thank you. You're also a handsome boy. Even though I'm kind of stuck down at the bottom of the frame, I even lowered the camera. I don't know what's going on there, but just pretend I'm drowning. But thank you very much for the super chat. You definitely didn't need to do that. This is just a friendly hangout, but very nice of you, so thank you. Jason says, he'll out himself as an EV hater until about 2017, until I educated myself on the performance and tech. Now 7 yes. Oh, now 7 Teslas in a 75 house development. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think till 2017, that's still pretty early. I didn't know anything about EVs, really. Like, I had a friend I used to work with who would tell me things every now and again about SpaceX or Tesla and Elon Musk. And I'd just go, man, that's really cool. I'll never be able to afford that. And then it wasn't until I got a test drive in early 2018 that I even started looking into it. I mean, other than, like, oh yeah, it'd be cool to get an EV someday down the road. We've got the Prius, we liked it because of the sweet style. But it just didn't seem like anything would be nearly attainable for us. And then we had the basic, the same questions everybody has of, well, where do you charge it? How far can it go? Can it work in the winter? Is the battery going to die and I'm going to need to replace it? All that stuff that to me now seems like, oh, this is so boring to answer. But, when you're coming to it for the first time, that's the stuff you want to know. So, yeah, I can't say I was a hater, but I was just it's not for me. It's, it's a rich people's toy. And until I saw a friend, one of my classmates from high school had one, and I was like, how can you afford a Tesla? How, you're a normal guy. Well, relatively normal. But you're a normal guy. You're driving an EV and you came here from New York? Unfortunately, he was here for his father's funeral, but, so instantly some of those big question marks started getting, taken off the plate. Well, clearly if he can drive from New York to Minnesota, you can road trip in it. And that's not I'm flitting around California kind of drive. So, it was pretty easy to, grasp that there's a big change with the Model 3. And that's what got me into it. Taylor says, depending on the dates for that TeslaCon thing down in Texas, I might try to make it. Would be a fun road trip. Yes, it definitely would be a fun road trip. I'm signed up as a maybe. I would love, love, love to go, and I assume they're going to try to time it with the Giga Texas event. And so even if you can't get into that, you can be in town and kind of be in the thick of other events. So I would love to get that. The big thing I'm afraid of, this is a minor fear, but we're planning this road trip for the end of February down to Florida. And it's going to take, with driving there and back with Joan and I, it's going to take about a week and a half. And the way things always seem to work out is this thing in Texas is going to end up being 2 days before or the next weekend. And I don't know if I'll be able to, with home commitments and sanity from driving that much, be able to make that work in. Now I could, if it's the weekend before, I could just take Joan out for more school. This year is just me taking her out of school. Because my wife's got to stay here. She's going to fly down and meet us in Florida. So there would be a chance, if it's that weekend, that we could swing down through Austin and then cut across the Gulf Coast again. But I gotta tell you, I rewatched the Frunkful of Diapers video series, which if you haven't seen, I think it's still pretty good. It's a pretty good road trip video, or series of videos. But I just remember on the drive home, remember filming some of those pieces and how exhausted I was and at my wit's end, both with having, driven Joan so far, so fast, and the length of that trip being the only driver. I don't know if I have the gumption for that again. Maybe if we took it a little slower. So I'm afraid it's going to be too close to that, either before or after, or, really the same weekend. It might, who knows when it'll end up. But that's my concern is if it's too near that, I don't know if I can handle doing another trip like that. If it's not near that and family things work out, I would love to go. And I would probably be leaving Joan home so I can do adult things like stay out past 8. Maybe have a beer or two. So, yeah. And really, that's how, with what this is going to be, that's how I would want to do it. There would be other benefits to, going with Joan. There are going to be some family-friendly events, I think, as part of this. So it's not like it would be a complete waste to have her there. And it would also get us driving through Louisiana on the way to Florida, which is where the Well Done Foundation is doing some work, has already capped, I think, their first well in Louisiana already this year. So there would be some benefit to that. But again, I'm really trying to keep road trips going forward, especially after last year's and the Frunkful of Diapers. We went to Fully Charged Live for a couple days, then over to Florida, did Disney World, and then drove back. And packing so much into a road trip is just, you get back and you almost need a couple days to just sit and stare out the window and recover. So we'll see. I would love to do it. I would love to do a big Minnesota convoy and just, from the North Star down to the Lone Star. I don't know. We could make T-shirts or something, and really, do it up big. So I'm hoping it ends up in like late March or early April or something, and I can just say, all right, Dad's going to be gone for 3 days or 4 days, and do that, and then just film the hell out of it and make some fun videos as well. Tyler says, I saw a Gen 1 Volt at a gas station in 2012 with the big Volt decal on the sides. I was still in high school, and he got his Volt in 2019 and been an evangelist ever since. Excellent. Yeah, the Volt is the first car. I didn't know about the Model S. Or at least, like I said, my friend from work may have shown me a picture of it, and I went, wow, that's cool, but again, never for me. But the Volt was the first one after we got our Prius where I was like, ooh, I really want one of those. Like, it looked good. You could drive it mostly on electric. It's just, yeah, especially back then, it kind of ticked all the boxes. But again, it was like, well, the Prius is working fine. I'm not ready to switch to something else yet. So, yeah, it's a shame they got rid of that vehicle. Austin Tesla Owners Group is trying to put on a gathering with RSVP. Jason, I don't know if that's a question or not. So I will see if I can. I'm trying to think of the name of it, the name of the event, and of course I can't. It's like the Texas Tesla Summit or something like that. And so yeah, the Austin Tesla Owners Group does have a website for this, and a quick RSVP page where you say, are you interested in attending, and if so, how interested? One was maybe where it was like, if things work out with work and things like that, I'd like to come. That's what I entered, and then there was a middle level that was like, unless something urgent comes up, I'm going to come. And then there was a definitely going to be there tab. So you kind of had three levels of commitment. And then, if you're coming, will you be driving? And I'm trying to think what the other question was. Oh, if you'll be bringing a guest or not. So a pretty simple RSVP form. And I think that's just if they're arranging, dinners, or we're going to buy out a restaurant, or no, there aren't going to be enough people to buy out a restaurant for a night, things like that. I'm sure they're trying to get their hands around. I'm a little concerned. There's been jokes about this being the next, the Tesla version of the Fire Festival. I'm a little concerned about that. I would guess they've done club events and stuff like that, but I used to work for an event production company, and there's a lot that goes into big events. And judging by how much it was shared and being talked about online, partially due to the dumb way they announced it, but I'm not going to get into that. If they have, a couple thousand people who are all driving to Austin to attend these events, they need to be well organized and, have some people, some dedicated people organizing it, and then a lot of volunteers to help coordinate it. So hopefully that's all being sorted out. I would think if they made this big announcement and stuff that they have taken that stuff into consideration. But I will be doing maybe a little more investigating before I hit the road. John's asking, are you and your brother going to do a road trip together in the future? I don't know. It all depends on our schedules. I could see us definitely going up to northern Minnesota again together. Yeah, it all depends on where he wants to go, where we want to go, schedules, workload, all that kind of stuff. I would say northern Minnesota is very likely. It would be great. I still haven't driven the Tesla down through the Southwest. And that is some of my absolute favorite parts of the country. I would love to go back to the Grand Canyon. That is one of my favorite places on Earth. Of the Earth that I've seen, I'll say that. So I'd love to do a Tesla road trip down there. I'd love to go out to California again. My brother's got friends in both areas, so that might end up happening. We don't have any plans for it now, but you never know. Roland says our 20 or 14 volt was my gateway to EV after driving it almost 2 years and rarely using the engine. Made him decide to go pure electric. Yeah, that's a great gateway, like our Prius was too. When the engine shut off at low speeds, I was like, oh man, it would be great if you could just do that until that ran out. And that's basically what the Volt does with a bigger battery. Yeah, Roland, we can do that. We can do a road trip too. I've really, since I've been traveling up to North Dakota or through there a lot in the last couple of years, I really do have found I love it. And kind of look for excuses to get back up there. I keep seeing Destiny post stuff about the things that are happening in the Dickinson Dinosaur Museum. I'm like, oh, I should run up and go check that out. I'm like, it's a long hike just for running up and checking it out. So we might get back up there this summer just for kicks. I know they've got some new fossils they're uncovering and stuff like that too. So it'd be cool to make a run that far at least. But we'll see. We're doing, like I said, we're doing this trip in Florida, or to Florida. I think it's near when the next crewed mission is going to be, but I think it's now moved past our dates. But I'd also like to take a road trip to the Northeast in the Tesla. I'd love to get up to the cross Canada highway. Never been up there with the Tesla yet. So there's a lot of ground to be covered. It's just a matter of time and money and all that kind of stuff. So we'll see. We'll get through Florida and then see what's next. Talked about that. I saw a cool video today. A cool, uncool video today from Monroe and Associates, Monroe Live. Did an automotive history with Sandy and Al. And it was two old guys talking about older guys in the auto industry and some of the disruptive stages through the early part of the automotive industry. And it was a really good talk. And they talked about, Henry Ford's disruption. And then they talked a little bit, interestingly, about how Ford got disrupted by the Dodge brothers and someone else whose name is escaping me, because Henry Ford wanted to keep making the Model T, because he had everything arranged, everything was good, and it was, obviously making money and easy to keep cheap. And other people were like, no, there needs to be more variety, and more innovations. And so he kind of got disrupted when he got comfortable as well. Now, he did come out with a Model A, then afterward they talked a little bit about that. And some of the other changes, and then they kind of ended up talking about how where the auto industry is today. They kind of jumped from, I think the last dates they were talking about were the 50s. And then they kind of jumped up to today, talking about how companies are being disrupted now, and then tying that back to the Japanese, coming in with Toyota and Honda in the late 70s, early 80s, and, kind of disrupting the industry back at that point. So they kind of worked both ways back to that. But then they looked at a new vehicle from China. I'm trying. It starts with an I. I can't remember the name of it. But it was like a crossover SUV size. And they were just like, this is incredibly solid, seems incredibly well built. The range is supposed to be good, comfortable, and talking about how, if the U.S. automakers don't get off their butts, China is going to just eat them alive. And he said, some of the stuff I'm seeing in this vehicle is stuff from seminars I gave in China a few years ago, that were kind of wide open, but they talked about problem solving. They talked about, using certain type of fasteners rather than other type of fasteners and the reasons why. And all those lessons are in this vehicle. And if the American companies don't get moving faster, these are going to come faster and cheaper from China if they don't get to it. So very, um, I thought it kind of lended a lot of credence to the conversation they had just had. And then when you see these two, like, old professionals from the auto industry going, oh, that's really nice. Ooh, I really like this. Or that sounds really good, or, things like that. It really kind of hammered home the point they were trying to make. And kind of in that vein, Clean Technica was put out an article talking about how in China, gas sales are down last year by 4%, and EVs are up 145%. And they have a lot of different incentives and reasons why that is. But it just shows, like, they are making them super fast for their own market, and they're growing super fast, which means that market is going to be any of the pitfalls of the EV revolution that might need to be fixed or changed or altered. Norway might find those faster. Some of the other countries in Europe. But China is definitely going to find those faster, and they have the manufacturing capability to pivot those quickly to get out of those pitfalls where, GM just had this big recall. Could be a fluke. Their EV market could have something like this and find it out faster, fix it faster. Well, the U.S., who is still only a third of the U.S., even wants EVs, isn't even finding those pitfalls out yet. So they can manufacture knowing that stuff could be down the pipeline, where the GMs, the Fords, the Stellantis, which is Fiat Chrysler, might not even know about those things. And so it just means that those products are going to be more future ready, most likely, than our own. So a good talk, and very, I kind of tied those two things together, but we need to get off our rears and be supporting Tesla, the Rivians, even the Lucids, other EV startups, and get the U.S. auto manufacturers really cranking these things out and doing them well. So hopefully that ends up being the case. We shall see. Is the all-electric Mini sold in Minnesota? I don't think so. I could be wrong on that. It might be you can get it here, but you have to get it through another state, because our zero-emission vehicle mandates haven't gone into effect yet. So I would guess you'd have to get it from a ZEV state that's already got them. Let's see. Got a chuckle at Lunds and Barley's in Maple Grove yesterday. Use them because I can drive up. Talking with the manager about Tesla, and a woman says, "Isn't an expensive car?" And I said it isn't. And isn't this expensive? And I said, isn't this expensive grocery store? Money you save you on gas you put into your car payment, and she didn't understand. Yeah, the gas savings is pretty significant. Not as much anymore on road trips because of supercharger prices going up, but still, if I have to pay the same as I did for gas on a road trip and can save a whole bunch at home, I'm perfectly okay with that. So, I think that's all I had on my notes for tonight. I did see on Twitter a lot of the Tesla Q people are having meetings and having, I don't know, some Twitter chat function I don't use, meetings about discussing how Tesla is a lot like a thermos. I think they're wrong. I don't want to say the real company's name because of I think that whole thing is getting too much attention. And it's kind of getting attention because so many Tesla people are mocking them for it. But I feel like mocking it can kind of bring attention to it and might backfire a little bit. Where if this topic becomes popular to more people who don't know, get sucked into the Tesla Q thinking, and be schooled by the astute and brilliant observations of the short sellers. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I just always think it's funny, and I wanted to make a thermos meme, but I think somebody already has. But and on that bang up joke, I think that's all I have for tonight. It's 11 tonight. Oh, no, there is one other thing. It was in the thumbnail. How did I forget this? The blue snowflake. I meant to talk about this when we were when we wrapped up talking about the winter stuff. But the blue snowflake, as I did my test, by the end of it, there was a variance of about 6%, 7% between what the car was showing. Car was showing 4% range left. The app said 11. And the car had the 4%, but it also had the blue snowflake. And I was thinking, how do you get that 7% back? Normally, you would drive to warm, assuming you didn't plug in. Obviously, plugging in, it's going to warm the pack up. Or, if you plug in and start charging, it'll warm the pack up. Get rid of that. But if we had started driving with 4% and this mystery 7%, would we have been able to warm up the battery enough in that 4% to get access to some of that 7% hiding? Or at that point, is that 7% gone? In which case, why bother showing it? If anyone has any insight into that, I would love to know. I think what we're going to do for Sunday's video is dig into this, and this might be a topic that's only interesting to me. So I apologize for that in advance. But I want to, with a higher state of charge so we don't end up getting stranded, what I'd like to do is let the battery get good and cold. And so we're seeing the snowflake. And then drive, and then I'm going to have my wife, and tell me if this makes any sense at all. I'm going to have my wife write down what the state of charge on the app is, what the state of charge on the car is, and whether or not we still have the blue snowflake. And maybe take a reading every 5 minutes. And maybe we drive. I was thinking, well, it would probably take a long time to warm up on city streets, and would warm up really pretty fast on the highway, but maybe we find something that's like 55 miles an hour. And just drive, take that data, take those measurements, and see. I'm trying to think of the best way from a data standpoint to collect this, but my gut feeling is the app and the car are going to say two different things until the snowflake disappears. At the point the snowflake disappears, we should see both the app and the car reading the same thing. Now, the question is, do we then become more efficient or less efficient than we were? Like, as we're losing that difference and warming up the pack, are we actually getting more out of those miles? Or I would guess less, and then once the pack is warm, we should start losing percentages at a slower rate. So we're going to dig into that. I don't know if it's, like I said, I don't know if it's really interesting to anyone, but I thought since we're kind of on a winter kick here, I guess what I really want to know is if there's a difference between the app and the car, and you can't really effectively get that difference out, what's the point of showing the snowflake? Or what's the point of showing the difference, showing more on the app rather than showing just, hey, you've lost that? Obviously, at the low state of charge, you essentially have lost it, I think. I'm not willing to sacrifice my battery to find that out. But, at a higher state of charge, I think we can maybe figure it out. So if anyone has any an insight into that, let me know. But I think that's the test we're going to do. Should be a relatively shorter video and hopefully easier to explain once I have it all scripted. But if anyone has any insight onto that or thoughts about how to handle that, feel free to drop something in the chat, or as this is about to end, leave it in the comment below. I'd be really interested to hear people's thoughts on that. And I meant to add that to the beginning of the video and not at the very end. So hopefully some people still stick around for it. Roland's heading out. Good night. John wants to play Sammy Hagar, I Can't Drive 55, as we're doing the test. We could do that. Might get a copyright strike if we're filming it, though. But we'll see. I hope to do that in the next couple days. But with that, I still don't think my end screen is fixed. So this is going to be a fairly abrupt end, and I forgot I dropped my mouse, or my trackpad earlier. So I will do the very dignified pick something off the floor now. This guy's just got it all together, doesn't he? But with that, you guys all have a great night. Thanks for joining. Thank you very much for hanging out. Dusty, thanks for the super chat. Really appreciate that. Have a great night, and I'll catch you in the next one. I'll see you Sunday, and then we'll do live next Wednesday, assuming nothing comes up. But I'll actually be set up for that one, though, so watch out. It's going to be a humdinger. And in 2 weeks, we'll have the live stream after the Tesla call, which we should have some big news and product roadmap updates and things to talk about. So I think 2 weeks from now will be the same night as the Tesla earnings call. And there should be, like I said, some interesting things to talk about, if nothing else. But thank you. Bye, John. Bye, Tyler. Bye, Jason. Good night and have a great day. Thanks. Bye.